Welcome back, guys. Now, the world of automotive design can be really restricting sometimes, and I wouldn't say boring, but it's a lot of repetition. I love to get a lot of influence, a lot of creativity, a lot of momentum sometimes when I look into the world of gaming and I can see what the designers there are doing. And I must say, I'm a little bit envious of what they get to do because they don't have to hold back. And for that reason, I want to take a look today at the vehicles in Watch Dogs Legion. So Watch Dogs Legion is a game that's designed for the world in 2030 based in London. So do these cars actually match up to what a professional designer thinks is coming in 2030? I'm really curious to see the cars in this one, and let's hope there's some good ones that are way out there, at least way out there in my view, and that can match up to what I expect us to be seeing in about 10 years time on the road.
The illegal paintings spreading subversive and hostile messaging over the last few weeks across London are not the work of several people as was originally believed, but the work of an individual. Authorities recommend not to approach the individual.
And we're going to start first with the BOGAN EV4 Sport. First impression, is it influenced by any car out there today? Absolutely. We can all see it. You know your cars, you know you're looking at an evolution of the i8. But I kind of like the approach they've taken here. So this car, in a way, almost reminds me of what a car could have looked like before the i8 actually made it to the market. There's nothing on the car that can't be done today. And for that reason, I think it's a little bit old before it's even made it to the market. The grille makes no sense because if it's an electric car, it doesn't need a grille. And if they have to rely on a grille to give it its identity, then it's already starting on its wrong foot. Then we look down the side of the car and we just see a graphic that kind of gives you the feeling that something's going on with the glass coming down into the body side, but I doubt it because it's not even going to be a purposeful line where you can actually see out of. So graphics for graphics sake, never a good idea. We move to the rear of the car. Again, a lot of i8 influence, but like I said, an older version of the i8. It just feels, for me, today, like it was done 10 years ago. So again, a fail. So, having said that about the last one being a little bit disillusioned, let's see if the next one picks it up. This is the Oscuro Ultra 8. This one looks potentially like something we could see on the road in 2030. I mean, if I look at it closely, there are a few elements that pop out that I do recognize. Front view, rear view, there are a few elements that would have to be based on concept car, I think, that Giugiaro actually produced, which was the 2009 Fraser Nash Namir. And I can see a very, very aggressive design, a very angular design. It looks like a concept car, which is great. I'm not saying the design itself is great, but I do like it when I see a vehicle that brings almost a new language of design to the world. One thing that holds me back a little bit on a design like this is the use of what we would say is a normal headlamp in the front. That doesn't seem believable to me for the year 2030 when we'll already have probably a standard laser headlamps, which would be able to do things that a car like this just doesn't seem like it can do. It needs to be much more advanced. I love the rear view of this car. Again, it's extremely aggressive, which suits the overall design. A little bit of the Batmobile approach with the wings of the rear spoiler, the arms supporting the wings coming up and over into the middle of the car. Now I know that Watch Dogs Legion has the map of London down to a T. So if you were able to direct this towards the Dorchester Hotel in London, you would probably see a couple of these parked out in front of it. The next one we're going to look at is the Elec Motors Guide. smile a little bit because this one, for me, looks a little bit cartoonish. But I can definitely see something like this on the road in 2030. Now, you probably would have trouble determining if the front is coming at you or the rear is coming at you or going away from you. But it's kind of got that balanced look where the car could possibly go in both directions. Who knows? That could be an interesting direction in the future for cars, to be symmetrical in that respect when it's a utility vehicle. In that sense, it does look unusual, and perhaps unusual is the way we should be going. Again, this is not a case of form following function. This is just pure function. If I was going to optimize something like this, I would probably try to cube it up a little bit, square it up a little bit in order to create more interior space. The car operating in city conditions probably doesn't need to be so aerodynamically shaped, because you're not going at super high speeds where the wind is probably a deterrent to fuel consumption or electric consumption, I guess. Perhaps this is the future of Uber, where you have a vehicle that just constantly moves throughout the city, really on a non-stop trip, where you jump on and you almost jump off. You're meeting 3 strangers, 4 or 5 strangers on board who are generally going in the same direction as you. And that could possibly be a very effective vehicle in terms of city transportation and mobility. Can we expect to see a vehicle like this in the year 2030? I think so. I think this would make sense on the road, and I would probably use one of them. These could be absolutely free, and the way you pay for this is you jump on board, and the advertising inside the vehicle that you will be forced to see pays for your trip. Interesting concept, and that's turning mobility into a much funner, much more economical way of traveling around cities. Moving on to the next one, this is the Nakahawa SX825. And my first impression of this, perhaps something like this will be on the road in 2030. Again, not pushing any limits, but it's got something a little bit different on it, and maybe that's just talking about the headlights. Other than that, I don't see a lot of future design in this vehicle at all. First of all, the grille. You probably won't be needing that much air in a car of the future. As we look at the rest of the car, you move back towards the A-pillar. I don't think we'll be seeing solid A-pillars like what we're seeing here. Probably glass wrapping completely around. Not even need glass that drops down. I mean, we probably won't even need to drop or want to drop the glass, depending on the dystopian society that you live in. You'll probably have the air con system or the heating system that takes care of that. As we move to the rest of the side of the car, what I do like is this sort of new treatment to the wheel design. Not that it's revolutionary, but at least they've tried there to give it sort of a different look. The door panels look kind of interesting because there's a lot of shape going on there. So obviously they've thought a little bit about the aerodynamics and the actual identity of the vehicle. I don't know, again, if you're going to be seeing such a normal way of doing cut lines on doors. I think the whole side of the vehicle should open up, and perhaps you just have one large door, and to show 2 doors like this with the normal cut lines, I think is really dating the car again. So you're probably not getting a maximum use of space in the back of this car with the way the glass is raked down like that. You could optimize that a bit. I can see the trick in the dark tailgate, trying to eliminate the bulk of the rear end. Taillights are just taillights that we would normally see on a car today. They're not doing anything revolutionary. I mean, branding is all about that. And so you want to use every element at your disposal to create uniqueness to the design. And I think the way they've done here is a failed opportunity. The next one is an interesting one. It's the Kuahawa Zentura. I hope motorcycle design does not go too far down this route in 2030. For me, first of all, this looks like you could make it out of wood or even origami. The only way that this bike design is acceptable is if we treat it as maybe a Cybertruck type kind of design where the metal is just pressed and you're at the mercy of what the metal can do for you. Is just a tool and a tool for tool's sake, and that's it. Because this bike, actually, I'm getting more aggravated the more I talk about it. In terms of design, 0. The next car we're going to look at is the Peyron Ardor. I can see some influences from the Ford Mustang. Look at that grille. And I can also see a bit of influence. Now, if you know your cars from Ford, you'll recognize the Ford Probe. Look at that rear 3/4, the way the rear glass is. Will that be a car that we can see on the road in 2030? I hope not. Not that it's an ugly car, but that it's just not advanced enough for a car in the year 2030. Why? Because it's too traditional. It's using a grille to give it its identity, and we're going to have to start looking at ways as we move into the future of propulsion when we're not using ICE engines, and even if we are using ICE engines, internal combustion engines, we will probably be looking at other ways to give the car its own identity, its own character. The only redeeming quality on this car is that it matches up with one of my favorite cars of all time, the Honda CRX. And where does it match up? Well, on the rear end, as the glass comes off the roof, continues down and drops down, that part is, I could say it's inspired by the CRX. Whether it is or not, it's a good question, but it does work well, and I think it works well on this car because aerodynamics would work very well on a car with that type of rear end if it has active aerodynamics on the rear at high speed. And now let's move on to the next one, the last one, the vale VK7. Now what do I see here? Bam, right off the bat, a concept car. And why do I think it's a concept car? Probably because it's wrapped or it has a new technology for the paint, because I've never seen a paint that looks this bronzy, I would say almost highly reflective bronzy finish onto it. So that first impact is very interesting, very cool. So looking at it from the front, I think what we're missing is the newness that we expect that all future products have, where there's a lot more cohesiveness to the design, not a mishmash of components. That front end is all over the place. I mean, there are so many different elements on the front end of this design, and then I'm trying to pick out one point of the design that I focus in on and say that's the main part of the design. And on that front end, I'm sorry, I cannot see one leading design feature. It's a mishmash, a potpourri. Moving from the front to the back, now we come to the rear end. And for me, this is not the way we do dual tone colors. They've simply put a random line that separates the bronzy color with the black color on the rear of the car. Why? I'm not sure. Typically, we will do it to shorten the overall effect of a vehicle, to make it look a little bit more compact, to sort of disguise the volume of the car. If it needs to be done, you do it as a last resort. I would almost have to swear that the intention of 2030 in this game here is to go back in history and pull out elements of past designs. I think they might have freaked out when they saw the way the 2020s were developing, that cars were going in a direction that was probably ugly as the new beautiful almost, and they've decided to come back to what we previously in the past deemed beautiful. For a car of this segment here, which looks like it's trying to be upmarket, it's actually holding it back. Why would you put a shark fin antenna on a car in 2030? This is really going back. I mean, BMW is very famous for designing this type of antenna. I was involved on the first one, I think. But this is really a trend that is evaporating, and we're going towards different types of antenna. But for me, it's definitely not a step ahead in terms of design, innovation, or even what I would consider today even to be a beautiful way to execute design. So it looks like Watch Dogs Legion doesn't have a lot of faith in today's car designers to be able to bring something fresh and innovative to the market, which I definitely hope isn't the case in the future, because if that is, I'll be soon out of a job. So come on, please have more faith in car designers that we will be able to bring newness and positivity to the future of automotive design. So having said that, what do you think? Have I been too harsh, too hard on this, and I'm expecting perhaps too much for the future? Let me know what your opinions are. Let me know if you're a positive thinker and you're looking more towards a utopian instead of a dystopian future. So leave your comments below. I'll look forward to reading them. And again, I hope to see you soon in the not so boring future.